Well, hey, morning, folks. That threw me a little bit there. We've got a wee new intro video and an outro video. Let us know what you think. Hopefully, we've not burst your eardrums there. But yeah, we're on, and I'm joined by a full squad. Joshua, first of all, how's it going, Joshua?
Yeah, good to be here with you both.
Absolutely. And Stevie Clifford also joins us. How's it going, Stevie?
Hi, good morning, guys. Hope everybody is well.
Yep, absolutely. It's Friday, of course. So, yeah, very much. Well, I say we're looking forward to the game on Sunday, but let's hope Rangers can get back to winning ways. That's for sure. The international break is over and real football is about to commence once again. So we'll get stuck into how we feel Sunday will go, how we think Philippe Clement will shape up. Of course, the manager will conduct his press conference this afternoon and we'll hear who is available and who is out for the game. It's your good self heading along, Joshua. Am I right in thinking to the training centre this afternoon?
Yeah, it is obviously a 12 o'clock game. Is it 12 o'clock on Sunday? Isn't
Yes.
it? 12 o'clock on a Sunday. That's the worst kickoff time. Maybe not as bad as 8 o'clock on a Sunday, which Rangers have obviously coming up as well. But it'll be interesting to hear. Obviously, before the international break, I think Ridvan Yilmaz was the only player who was kind of still out, wasn't he? He wasn't part of training. So it'll be interesting to hear where the likes of Nico Raskin and Oscar Cortez are. In regards to playing some minutes, and also if everyone's come through internationals, I think Nedim Bajrami will be a topic of conversation. I don't actually know if he will have trained with the team yet. We'll get confirmation of that today because he went away straight away on international duty, but there'll be a lot of clamour, understandably, for him to start as well. So yeah, lots to get into, and obviously in isolation as well, for, as Stevie's written on the website this morning, for Clement, for the squad going into September with 4 difficult matches. A huge match to try and not only get a result, which is going to be difficult going to Dundee United for Rangers, but also some semblance of a performance to try and build some momentum in September.
Yeah, absolutely. Go and check Stevie's piece out, folks. The link is in the description below this video. Well worth a read. Yeah, let's crack into the news then. First is affects on-field, but it's an off-field issue. And good news on the stadium front. Rangers have announced the Copland front will be open to fans for the return to Ibrox later this month when Rangers take on Dundee in the League Cup quarter-final on Saturday, the 21st of September. Initially, it was communicated that the stand would remain closed while the final works would be completed, but the club have now confirmed that the Copland front will be opened for supporters. A statement on the club website yesterday says, following good progress and completion works, Rangers can today confirm the Copland front will be open for the Dundee match in the Premier Sports Cup on the 21st of September. Season ticket holders from this area will now be able to purchase their own seat from 5 p.m. this evening, while supporters in the Copland rear, which will remain closed for this match as final concourse works continue, can select an alternative seat elsewhere in the stadium, also from 5 p.m. this evening. Tickets for the 5:30 p.m. kickoff are priced at £23 for adults, £17 for concessions, and £11 for juniors. You've been posting some updated pictures, Stevie, of the works. Looks good to stand, doesn't it? And very eager to get back there.
Yeah, definitely eager to get back, that's for sure. I think we have to, say that the changes do look on the eye very impressive, and hopefully the disabled facilities, Derek, are what we hope they will be for those that will be using them. And I think that the additional seats at the front of the rear of the stand, as silly as that sounds, look actually quite good. So yeah, I'm quite pleased with how it looks. I've obviously not been inside yet, so don't know how that looks and how that's all panning out. But it's definitely a good thing. It's not good, and I'm not sure it's necessary to go back over what we've kind of went through and stadium wise and try to get that sorted. But it's definitely going to be, in the long run, once it gets fixed, a good thing. And I do think it does look good. It's pretty pleasing on the eye, and it'll be great to get back there soon.
Yeah, no question about it. And has been a bit of a headache, it's fair to say, having to use Hampden for 3 matches, I think it was, wasn't it? Two was it 1-2?
St Johnstone, Dundee. There's no St Johnstone, Motherwell, and Ross County any more than that?
Yeah.
And Keith so far, yeah. Wasn't great.
No, no, it was not great. And yeah, I felt for the supporters heading along there. So yeah, itching to get back, and we'll be back before we know it. So fantastic stuff. Right, let's move on to on-pitch stuff then. Sunday will come around before we know it, Joshua. I said it before, I'm a bit apprehensive about this game. You mentioned earlier, I mean, the kickoff time for a start. I'm not a fan of these early kickoffs.
Yeah.
Dundee United have started the season well. It's their cup final. As Stevie's touched on earlier on in the week, I imagine they will have a go at points, but in the main, I think they'll try and make life difficult for Rangers. A lot of questions surrounding team selection, and the big one, a lot of noise, and he's someone we've discussed at length in videos this week and even last week as well, is James Tavernier. Jan with the point, Tav needs to go or be benched. Mentality shift needed after that effortless performance before the break. News emerging from various sources and things like, I mean, there was Turkish clubs keen on James Tavernier. It now looks like that will not materialise, and he will still be a Rangers player up until January at least, and then who knows what happens when the transfer window opens. But that is a big call for the manager this week, isn't it? The captain, does he start him or does he play someone else? We'll have a predicted teams out a little later on, over the weekend. Spoiler alert, I would drop him, but Joshua, where do you stand on that?
Well, if you look at what Clement said over summer, he said that he would be rotated to Tavernier because he said on more than one occasion he's played too many games and that's been to the detriment of his performance overall. If you look at, I think, his season just last season, up until March time, I think he was in pretty good form. He scored that goal against Hibs, which made him the UK's record defensive scorer, or whatever. I think, correct me if I'm wrong. Ross County at home. There's a lot of games where he was getting a lot of goal involvements, and then obviously it's felt like everyone else in that Rangers team, whether it be Jack Butland or just collectively as a unit, everything seemed to absolutely kind of nosedive from that home performance against Motherwell. So it shouldn't be a controversial thing in theory. It is because he's the captain. It is because there's a lot of noise around his future and a lot of noise and criticism of his performances at the moment, Derek. But if you're in Clement's shoes, I think you've got a few big calls to make tomorrow. I've just said there that Bajrami, has been away in internationals. Will he start? Because Clement has a tendency to want players to be involved. I think his rule is at least one training session. Stevie, I thought, hit the nail on his head in his column this morning when he said, you can correct me with the exact line, Stevie, but effectively no one's playing good enough for Bajrami not to really go into that team. It's not as if you're dropping anyone who's in form in particular. I think you need to get them up to speed. Also, you need to, with your team selection, probably play to the gallery somewhat and play a team that people will get behind. And I think that has to include quite a few changes from that old firm performance. So I agree with you, Derek. I think there's an interesting conversation to be had about Dujon Sterling's development and his best position at the moment and where he should be playing long term. I don't think there's any doubt that in certain games he suits that right back position more. And Clement has, prefaced that in the summer by saying that Tavernier will be rotated. So I think that needs to happen absolutely at some points. There's going to be a lot of focus on his team selection, not only at right back, but what he does in that midfield selection as well.
Does he get a decision to make, the manager, on the right back situation, Stevie?
He's got a decision to make from 1 to 11, Derek. I think that's, there's absolutely nobody in that 11 from Parkhead a couple of weeks ago that can realistically turn around and say, I played my best football and I shouldn't be removed from this team. There's every single position's up for grabs. Now, that's not realistic because he's not going to change 11 players. But like Joshua pointed out, that was my point this morning on Bajrami, that you just bring him in because it's not like that midfield's thriving. It's not like it's ever looked like it's completely clicked and things. So go and make the changes in there that's necessary. I want to see a reaction from everyone, and that includes James Tavernier. Should he be dropped? Derek, he should have been dropped in the summer, but we've had this discussion a very long time, and Joshua's right when he says about him being rotated and things like that. It's whether or not he will, and I don't think he will drop him. The manager will most likely point to the fact that James Tavernier was Rangers' most valuable player on and off the ball in that Old Firm game, and the value of that, it wasn't very high, but he was still the one creating the chances, cross for Rabbi Matondo, chances in the second half. So that's what he'll probably point to. It's not what I would point to, Derek, but that's what the manager's will most likely turn around and say. But I would like to see Dujon Sterling begin to get a run at right back. I think Joshua's right in what he's saying there, but whether or not he gets it, I'm not too sure. I really don't see the manager changing that, Derek. I think it's a huge call, and I don't think he will. I think he'll try and stabilise, and I don't really see him doing it. And plus, you've got another week. It's not like he can say, we've got a busy schedule. He's got Dundee next week. He's more likely to take him out the firing line for that one than this one, in my opinion.
Yeah, it would be a big call. Like Joshua said there, when he spoke to Chris at that training camp, said before, he said that when Goldson was there as well, that both Tav and Goldson wouldn't be playing 60 games a season from now on. But he has played every game, James Tavernier. I think he will play on Sunday, but I don't think he should. So that's where I stand on it. In terms of the other players in the back line, Joshua, as Stevie said there, I think it's quite right that 11 players should be looking over their shoulder, given the performance that was put in at Parkhead. Is goalkeeper one of them? Jack Butland still between the sticks, do you reckon?
Oh, yeah, 100%. I wasn't expecting. I thought we were going to talk about the centre backs. Yeah, you did throw me. Nice. We spoke about it last week. To mixed response, I think it's fair to say. His form since March hasn't been great. Give some context in the goals he's conceded. Hearts and Dundee when the league was done impacted his overall numbers quite a lot. He was obviously quite defiant. I thought his interview after the goal he conceded against Kyogo was interesting because he did take ownership, but he also tried to add a bit of context. I think that maybe speaks to a player who's a little bit maybe frustrated at his own form as well. He has conceded a lot of goals from outside the box in Old Firm games, as we spoke about in the podcast last week and as we had on the website, Derek. I think there is more than meets the eye to it. Having an unsettled defence ahead of him, I don't think has helped Jack Butland towards the end of last season. And he started this season okay, made some good saves in that opening game against Hearts, didn't he? But obviously the Old Firm game, as Stevie says, was wasn't a performance that anyone could kind of watch back with much pleasure. So there is interesting conversations to be had in the defence. Does it stay with Suter and Proper? One of the pieces we've had over the international break, it explores where Nana will play, why Rangers have brought him to the club. He's obviously very flexible, can play in a lot of different positions, also has a bit of speed. And if you're looking at Suter and Proper, I think Proper, the main weakness in his game from what we've seen so far is he's not a quick player. And Suter, I don't think he's slow, but equally, speed isn't one of the attributes that you'd pick out and say, yeah, that's what he's going to bring to the table. So a few interesting points there in terms of who plays at centre-back as well. I think it'll be Chefty at left-back, and he's done well over the course for me, especially given he's 20 years old. And then as we've come back to who's at right-back, at some point, I think you have to have that conversation about Sterling, where he's been a player that for too often, I think, through no fault of his own, he's not been a player that Rangers have built around, and injuries have come into that as well. But rather than being a player that Rangers have built around, he's kind of had to fill in lots of different areas of the pitch. And I think that at some point that must be a little bit difficult for players they try to build for him as well. But don't expect there to be a change in between the sticks, and if there is, you can say you called it first.
Yeah, well, I don't either, but I think Jack Butland's form hasn't been good either, but he's not the only one. Stevie, is Leon Balogun and Nana get a casing point to start on Sunday?
Yeah, absolutely they do. Listen, I thought John Suter against Celtic had some really good last-ditch moments, and I think he's a siege defender. When you are under pressure, I think he can block and clear and do stuff like that. I think that's where probably he's been our best kind of defender in that way. I thought Robin Proper was poor, I've got to be honest with you, but he's just here. So it's not a judgment. I'm not writing him off. I just thought he had a poor game. And I'm not so sure whether or not it would be John Suter that comes out of that team for me first. It would most likely be Robin Proper. But you could argue that Suter as well. So listen, Derek, I think that Leon Balogun and I'm just going to call him Nana as well because I'm not sure of how you pronounce that. It's Casavarzo, is it?
If Rangers TV are watching, they did it with Jefty. Do a little feature where they pronounce players' names that you struggle to pronounce. That would be really helpful. So there you go. Carry on, Stevie.
It'd be good if somebody done it with Nadim Barami as well, because people have said it's Bajrami, it's Barami.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Can
think it's
somebody
Barami.
sort I don't want another like Jaggy saying that's not Stevie, you're butchering this and all that kind of stuff. So if somebody could sort that out for me as well. I'm pretty sure that the way that Albanians pronounce it is Barami. So
Yeah.
Anyway, call him Dave for the now.
Yeah,
But centre back wise, I think you've got a case, haven't you, Derek? There could be changes all over the place, but he isn't going to change. He's not going to make 6, 7, 8 changes, right? So the ones that he's got to make sure they're the right ones. So and the ones that are going to make the biggest impact on the team. Is he really going to start chopping his centre backs and changing them? I'm not so sure. You most likely see changes against Dundee in the Cup. Now, I'm not saying that's right, but you'll try and get some league form and stuff together, I think. So, Robin Proper for me out the two is probably where I would be looking. I've got to be honest with you. I know a lot of people are really down on John Souttar, but I think he's been the better of the two in recent weeks, although it is marginal and the bar isn't exactly high for that. I just don't think that Proper has settled in yet to justify him being completely undroppable.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. And Jefty at left back, Stevie, would you go along with
There's nobody else, is there? There's only Robbie Fraser. And as much as I might want Robbie to get a game, he's not going to give him a chance, is he? So I don't see it being anyone other. It'd be nice if Ridvan, we could get a timeline for his return sometime before Christmas 2025 would be nice. But maybe we'll get that question answered today for the manager.
Yeah. I would like to see Robbie at left back, I've got to say.
On Sunday?
Yeah.
Over Shefty? Do you think he's been good?
I'd still be playing Shefty.
Oh, what, on the left wing?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm surprised that's twice you've caught me off guard this morning already.
Well, it's not a bad point, actually, with Matondo being injured.
Yeah, but again, I think with Shefty, well, Cortez was back in training, wasn't he? But I think with Shefty, it's like, do you give him consistency in one position or move him around a lot? I'm not, and it's tended to be when Fraser and Shefty, obviously Fraser's played in the left wing as well, so I think it'd be more likely to be Fraser a line up and Shefty at left back. But you're right, there is a question on the left wing who plays there. I'd probably be keeping Shefty at left back though. I interrupted you because you surprised me with that shout.
Well, it's all about opinions, so you'll see my predicted team soon enough. I'm awaiting the pelters, which will no doubt arrive over the weekend. But there we go. Midfield's an interesting one, guys, because Conor Barron has been playing pretty well since he arrived from Aberdeen. Incidentally, just on that, Rangers are soon to find out what they will have to pay Aberdeen. That transfer going to an SPFL tribunal. Aberdeen looking for a bit of cash for bringing him through their academy. So we'll soon find out what that fee will be. Barron starts in midfield for me. Then you've got Diamandi, who was off the pace against Celtic. I don't think he's been pulling up any trees of late. You've got Nico Raskin, who's back and by all accounts is fit and raring to go again, which is great news. We touched on Dujon Sterling. We'd like to see him at right back, but more often than not, he's been used in the midfield position. And of course, as we touched on there, we've got Barami there that provides an option for Rangers. And there are others in and around the fringes that will be looking to start the game. Joshua, how do you shape up in this one?
It will probably be, what will it be? I think Barron, Diamandi, Barami. I was saying Bajrami at the start of the show, but I'll start to say Barami. Sterling, I'm in agreement with both of you in that I think I think over the course, if you just exclude all the noise from the Tavernier situation, which I realise is difficult, I don't think it's always as black and white as it's made out. As Stevie says, he created a couple of good chances in that Old Firm game. Equally, he's made defensive errors that people have seen before, and it becomes a thing, doesn't it? And he's not winning that battle defensively at right back. So I would have no problems with seeing Sterling rotated in there to change things up a little bit, but also answer what Clement said in pre-season about the fact that there does need to be rotation in that position. No one is exempt from getting dropped, especially when Rangers are in the form that they are. That would lead then, I think, Barron and Diamandi at the base of midfield. Nico Raskin, he's been unfortunate with injuries. He's not been in great form really since that first 6 months he came to the club. I'd like to see him get a run at some point because I think he is a good player, but I don't think he's gonna start on Sunday, especially on his way back from injury. and then Barami in there as well. Obviously, there'll be a training session today and tomorrow. The fact that it's a Sunday game probably helps his chances a little bit. And as I said, I would put him in right away anyway, because I don't think there's enough grounds to not. But we know that Clermont likes to have players training first and foremost. So that's the three I'd probably go with. I agree, Diamandi hasn't done much at the start of this season, really, since pre-season. But him and Barron have shown some promising signs in there. But that's the three I would go with on Sunday, probably.
Will you deviate from that, Stevie?
It's difficult because I'm torn between the fact that I really like Nico Raskin.
Yeah.
As a boy, and Josh is right. He's hardly pulled up any trees, has he? So I would like to give him the same run of games that I give Dujon Sterling. And that's probably because at some point we need to figure out if these boys are really good enough, or they're just hanging about and living on what we think is their promise. You know, Dujon Sterling's the exact same as Nico Raskin, I'm afraid. Although Dujon has had more cameo good performances, neither of them, when they've started, have really hit the heights, have they? So they've had one or two games here and there, but I like to see both of them get a good run, half dozen games, and then we can properly figure out. And that would leave me with potentially bringing Diamandi out the team. And I don't think Diamandi at that moment would have much to complain about in that regard. So I'm with Joshua. I think that Barami starts for me, as does Connor Barron, who's the only one, I think, whose previous form makes him most unlikely to be dropped. So I would be looking at Barron, Raskin, Barami in there. And that's quite solid. Quite happy with that. Diamandi has a tendency to kind of play on the periphery and float in and out of games, and then can really influence it in one moment. So he would be between where Barami and Raskin would play for me. So as difficult as it is, and for wanting Raskin to play, I would take Diamandi out of the team. And I know that won't be hugely popular, but I just was really unimpressed by his last few games. And in the big moments this season, when we've needed him, Kiev at home, Celtic away, arguably, you know, I don't think he's performed the way he should. So for that reason, Derek, I would be bringing him out of the team.
I like that, Stevie. That is my midfield as well.
Is it?
It is, yeah. I want to see more of Nico Raskin as well. I think this is the match for him. I think he should be starting from the game now. There's a few comments coming in saying that we're way off, but that is why the game is called the beautiful game. Well, it's not really, but
is it?
It's something I made that bit up.
That in several years, to be honest.
Yeah. The forward areas then, because there's still positions up for grabs. I've already said that plays Yefti over on the left. On the right, I'd imagine Václav Černý starts Joshua, and then Dessers through the middle. Is there a casing point? I know Oscar Cortez is, by all accounts, we'll hear from the manager later on if he's fit enough to start the game, but I'd imagine he'll be pushing for a place in the squad at the very least. Egeman, of course, we've seen a cameo from him against Celtic. Ross McCausland's there. How do you see Rangers lining up in the forward areas?
It's the most likely situation, something like McCausland playing for a bit and then Cortez coming on, because it depends where Cortez is fitness-wise, but obviously he's not had minutes since that injury. Egeman as well, we know he can play in the left wing, but I'd say at the moment, while Danilo isn't fully fit and able to come off the bench or play at all at the moment, then Egeman's probably going to be used as that secondary striker option that Rangers will need. I thought it was, reflecting back on the fact that he hadn't played at all and then he was thrown on in the final 20 minutes of an Old Firm game was an interesting way to introduce him. But I thought he did all right when he came on and he can play in the left wing. But most likely, I would expect it to probably be. I don't think it's presuming that Ridvan isn't quite ready yet, and as Stevie says, we'll find out today. I don't think you'll see Clermont change his left back, so it will most likely maybe be McCausland who starts with Cortez coming in at some point. Cortez is another one who's just not been. He's had these kind of what Clermont's called freak injuries, but people see that as he's not been able to stay fit so far. This month, because there's only one midweek game, I think it's actually a good opportunity for Rangers to try and get some semblance of a strongest starting 11. That hasn't really happened since Clermont came in. He rotates his team a lot. But if you're looking at the attacking options, although Cortez, he's relying on a few bright spells few bright performances early on in his first spell to kind of earn that kudos. You're looking at him and Cherney and Barami being the three behind the striker that should give Clement, I think, football a better chance of clicking. So if fully fit, you'd expect Cortez to be there. If not, then maybe he's the one who comes off the bench in the second half.
How are you shaping up in the forward area, Stevie?
I like what Joshua said there about Eagleman, because see, this is the issue. I think there's a desire to be entertained and try something different, isn't there? Just because we want to see something to work. So immediately I was thinking maybe Hamza could have come in on the left-hand side, but what Joshua says about only having Cyril Dessers fit as your number 9, would you bring somebody like Zach Lovelace up to speed yet? Could he then become the second striker and possibly play from the bench? Could you have him as an option on the wing with his pace and stuff like that? But I will say this, and this is not meaning to come out as a criticism, so I hope everybody understands this, but Ross McCausland, for me at this moment in time, is a backup squad player for the right-hand side. I don't want to see him starting out on the left-hand side. I really don't want to see it. I don't think it does him any good, and I don't think it does the team any good. So with that said, Cortez, maybe not up to speed. Is he available? We're not sure. You know, you're looking at that left-hand side being open to somebody like Eagleman or possibly bringing somebody else in to start. So this is where I need to temper what's likely to happen with my desire, Derek and Joshua, just to be kind of entertained and try something different, just to try and get something to spark. And that's what I was talking about in the article a wee bit this morning, that I'm kind of relying more on hope than expectation that Barami's going to be the one that kind of knits everything together for £4 million. He's a big acquisition for us. He needs to kind of show us something. So left-hand side's a difficult option for me. Cortez, I think, is the obvious option, but is he fit? I'm not sure. So that's a really tricky position, I think, Derek.
Yep, absolutely. It will be interesting to see who shapes up in the forward areas for Rangers. Cherney's come in for a bit of criticism as well, Joshua, after that game at Parkhead, but I can't see anyone else coming in that right-hand side. I think he's got that nailed down at this moment in time.
Yeah, it started well against Motherwell, didn't he? And I guess we should mention Barami can also play on the left-hand side as well. So given the fact that Lawrence, hasn't been away in international duty, I'd imagine that these things come into the Clement's considerations. Could you see a situation where maybe Barami plays on the left and you've got a different midfield three, perhaps? But Cherney is not really another option, as Stevie says. McCausland is clearly more comfortable on the right than the left-hand side. Cherney he was better in that second game. He played in that second game for the Czech Republic and got an assist, I think, as they beat Ukraine, wasn't it, 3-2. Still needs that. He's played, 4, 5, 6 games. He was behind in pre-season. There was a lot of expectation when he came in, and against Motherwell, he was really good. But it just takes time. It's probably pretty normal for a loan signing who signed on July 26th after being on holiday for 4 weeks. It's probably normal for him to take until September to show any semblance of his best form. But as we know, there's just big games at Rangers in August as well, and because of the squad he comes into, because of the situation he comes into, there's a lot of emphasis on him taking responsibility and being one of the key attackers right away because of the lack of options up there. So that has to work for Rangers in that position. I'd expect him to start on the right hand side definitely on Sunday.
Good stuff. Right, we'll wrap up there. As we touched on, it is press conference day. Is my mic sounding okay? Incidentally, I've got a few comments saying I've just shiggled my wire in my mic, so hopefully that is sorted, that situation, as Stevie chuckles away there. Press conference. We'll hear from the manager around about, what time is it? Around about 1 o'clock?
Half past 1.
Yeah. So we'll have those of you that are Rangers Review Extra members on YouTube. We'll have the press conference reaction video later on this afternoon, where we'll discuss the big talking points from Philippe Clement and the player that Rangers put up for the press. And just a heads up as well, I spoke to Jeff Holmes yesterday, the author, about his new book, working with Alfie Conn, one of the Scottish football's controversial characters, but it's a cracking book, and we talk in detail about that and Alfie's career. Do go and check it out. I'm hoping at some point today to speak to a Romanian football journalist and family friend of the Hadjis, about how the situation is unfolding over in Romania with regards to Yanis, how Rangers are being viewed upon, and what the script is basically. So hopefully we'll hear from Marian Olianis at some point later on today. Yeah, as I touched on, plenty to come over the weekend. Josh, is it your good self heading up to Tannadice on Sunday?
I think it might be Chris, still TBC, but one of us will have, whoever it is, will have loads of coverage for people over at the weekend as ever. And yeah, from the press conference today as well. So you can join Chris and I, and it can be revealed who is there and what the setup is on the day.
Yes. Excellent stuff. Right. Thank you to each and every one of you for tuning in as ever. And yeah, we'll speak to you a little later on. Bye for now.